Hello, wonderful people. Have you ever noticed how much of our lives we spend just pretending we aren't afraid? We're taught this incredible, painful lie, especially as men. Fear makes you weak. We get judged for hesitating, called names on the playground, and so we just learn to bury it. But buried fear doesn't disappear. It turns into self-torture. We stay in situations we don't like. We compromise who we are. We beat ourselves up in our own minds, all because we're terrified of making a mistake or being abandoned. But what if acknowledging your fear isn't a weakness at all? What if it's the exact place where true strength and healing begin? And hi, if you're new here, I'm Kahir. I'm here to take you one step closer to self-love. Okay, there's a lot of toxic forces that are attacking men, right? We're suppressing our anger, right? And suppressed anger leads to dangerous behavior just to prove you're worse. And the basic tenets of the Course in Miracles, we talk about there are only two emotions, love and fear. I know that might sound simple, but the ego loves complexity. The Holy Spirit loves simplicity, right? So when we focus on the simple, like love and fear, things get a lot easier. Right? A man who's guided by love, by the Holy Spirit, doesn't suppress fear. He shines a light on it, right? He encourages it to come out. I mean, he's kind. And he leads other out of the dark, right? The thing is, guys, the reason why I'm making this video is because I've seen there's a lot of toxicity when it comes to men and fear. Like I talk in my previous videos, we use so much negative motivation, at least when I was growing up. It was very rarely, I was always taught to run away from things, right? Like, oh, go to school or else, be homeless on the street or, watch your diet or you're going to be as fat as me. That's what my dad would say. I'll never be like, eat your vegetables so you can be strong. I was always running away from something instead of being pulled towards something. And I think if we do things out of fear, we manifest things that are out of congruence to what we really want. Right? Now I'm learning on my journey to be very mindful. Why am I doing the things I am doing? What energy is this coming from? Is this coming from love or from fear? And for most of my life, I did a lot of things out of fear. And that led to miscreations. I got inspired by making this video when I had this memory resurface about the first time I was shamed about being afraid. I remember there's this public event, why exactly, but I remember it was like a jungle gym or something. There was a lot of kids. And I was up really high in the air for, a kid, whatever it was, and, crossing a bridge. I got stuck because I was looking down. I was afraid of heights. Like, I was 8 at a time, more or less 8, like one of those younger ages. And a kid behind me is like, "What are you doing, yellow belly?" At first, I didn't know what yellow belly was. That's until I told, I think, one of my parents. I was like, "Well, they call me yellow belly." And like, "Oh, that means you're a chicken." I'm like, "What?" But, probably a natural reaction, especially an 8-year-old kid. They afraid of heights, which we're all programmed to be afraid of heights. Right? But I felt shame, deep, deep shame. And there was no soothing, there was no repair, like, don't listen to the kid or anything like that. Right? So I didn't know the word yellow belly, but I felt the shame. Right? And this is how the ego teaches us that vulnerability is a sin. And the thing is, this kept going. Right? I could see this pattern in a lot of young guys, especially when I was a teenager. I'm going to tell a story. So it was a homecoming dance, I think, or one of those dances in high school. I was like a sophomore. And I was with my best friend Yusuf. And he knew I had a crush on this girl. Let's call her Marisha. And I wanted to dance with Marisha so bad. But then I made excuses like, oh, a Justin Bieber song played or something. Like, the moment wasn't right. But what Yusuf said? "Oh, bro, what? You chickened out?" No, I really, and took it. I took it like, oh man, I'm a failure. I chickened out. And how many of those guys had something said like that to us? Like it's supposed to motivate you in some way. But all it did was just destroy my self-esteem. Like, see, chicken, right? Fuck. You're a coward, Instead of just being, hey man, it's okay. Or what a better, like, I wish he encouraged me and be like, hey, go and talk to her. You got this kid here. Even though it was like, hey, you know what, bro? That's right. We'll find a different way. Don't worry about it. That's the kind of positive masculinity. Don't you feel that? Oh, I feel it. But it's like, oh, you chickened out. You little fucking pussy. No, he didn't call me pussy, but you know what I mean? No, I was, at that moment, I felt betrayed. You know, I really wish I got a hand, but it's not Eustace's fault. I just think it's this culture that we grew up in that, you know, every man for himself or something like this. He was, you know, a young kid just like I was, so didn't have that to us. He was operating under the same ego-driven societal scripts like I was. You know, oh, the guy who doesn't approach, he's a fucking pussy beta. And it's something with men who use shame to motivate us. Right? And we're going to get more into how destructive that can be. But you see, the underlying root of it is shame. You're not good enough. You're a fucking coward. You're a fucking chicken. You know? I don't want any man to look at himself in that way. No matter what is going through your life, no matter if you didn't approach a girl or you didn't face the fear that you know you could have, that's not how we build healthy habits. That's not how I build healthy habits. We have this sick ego script that is telling us this is the only way to motivate you, right? Punishment versus reward, or survival of the fittest. I know many of us subscribe to that notion, but do you see where that leads to? Now, forgiveness recognizes that what you thought your brother did has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin. Right, from Course in Miracles, workbook part 2. All sin is lack of love. Right? So when we call somebody a pussy, a beta, a chicken, and say we're sinning as in a way of that we're not expressing that love. Do you see where I'm going? Right? Because imagine, like I said, if someone came up to me and said like, hey bro, it's all right. You got it next time. It's, you know, it's like a million fish, anything else, you know? But I didn't have that healthy masculine role model. I didn't, you know? And I think a lot of us guys, we didn't have that growing up. And we kind of went into our primal instinct of shame, guilt. This is why all this red pill stuff is successful, because it prides on the pain point that you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And it knows exactly where to squeeze you. You know, I forgive Yusuf. I forgive myself for being afraid. Right? What I was also just afraid of was rejection. Right? I was afraid of the story. Right? And I was like, oh, if she's going to say no, a bitch. See how hard do we make it? Like, oh, if you approach, you get rejected, you're a bitch. You don't approach, you're a bitch. Easy to laugh at now, but when you're in the trenches of that egoic script, hard stuff, man. Now, there are real consequences when we have this fear of being called weak, where it leads men very astray. Like I said, with this red pill stuff, but it can even be with life and death. The guys might have heard about this poor kid, Sam Ballard. Right, he was there to eat a slug, you know, to prove to his friends, you know, he's a little tough guy. He contracted rat lungworm disease and died. Do you think they were like, come on, Sammy, you're a strong man, eat that slug? No, they're probably, come on, you're a fucking pussy, I bet you wouldn't do it. Fucking bitch, come on, don't be a pussy, eat the slug. Where does that lead us, guys? It literally leads us to death. I think about all the ways that I compromised myself, right? I wanted to fit in so badly. And this young man wanted to just fit in, wanted to get something so temporal as acceptance from his friends, right? Imagine, even if he ate that slug and it was fine, right? It's for what? 1 week maybe of being praised, and then it cost him his life. The ego demands sacrifice to prove worthiness. It convinces men that their bravado is much more important than their soul's safety. Their soul's safety. Remember what the Course teaches us. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you are trusting in your own strength. Right? True masculinity isn't about proving you can survive by something stupid. It's about having the inner security to say no to the ego's foolish ideas. Imagine if you didn't need any validation. Didn't need any validation to be like, this is stupid. I'm not going to eat a slug. That's disgusting. Right? I'm not trying to shame him or anything like that, but that mentality exists. It exists inside of me. Now, the biggest fear that I dealt with, or one of them, was the fear of abandonment that led to self-torture. Now, when we don't look at our fear, I think you've all experienced this, guys. It grows. It festers. It gets so big that we feel like we can't even deal with it. Especially when it's fear of abandonment, we don't even know where it comes from. Now I know it comes from childhood, but I didn't even have the strength. Or I didn't even know a lot of stuff did come from childhood. Right? I was under the spell of, I had a nice, healthy family. It wasn't until the Holy Spirit showed me, like, no, something has gone wrong here. Right? And this fear of abandonment that turned to abandoning myself. I learned at a young age to abandon myself before anyone else could abandon me. I was just so thirsty for any kind of closeness. I think about high school, university. I just desperately wanted to fit in. So I made a whole video about marching band, how I compromised myself. They had this hazing ritual, or maybe not hazing, but I was a tuba, and all the tubas said like, let's wear short shorts. And that's against my integrity. I'm not going to wear short shorts. The guys wore girl short shorts. Luckily, I had running shorts, so it wasn't as embarrassing, but still I wore them because I wanted to fit in. I know I talked about this, but if you could write in the comments if you had anything like that, because I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I didn't have anyone to talk about my feelings. Like, man, I compromised myself to fit in. With university, when I went to that acting school, and all these kids were drinking, smoking, I literally put myself in a room full of smoke. All of them were smoking. And they did it. I put myself literally in a place that was clogging up my throat, making me feel like shit. And they still rejected me. They're like, I don't remember what I was about. And I feel like my story is important to tell. Right? But I had no one to talk to about this. No one. Right? And this is the thing I didn't see it as me compromising myself. I just thought all these people are mean. Right? Which, okay, you could, no judgment, but let's say that alignment for me. I did it to avoid feeling alone. Right? I just wanted someone to see me, to see who I really was. I just wanted to feel accepted. Right? We all want to feel accepted. All of us. But we look at acceptance for immature people. Think about it. We're surrounded by kids in school. Their brains are literally not developed. And we look for acceptance for immature people. And we're just kind of programmed that way. And I had this huge fear of making mistakes, guys. Huge fear. And especially in social situations. I wouldn't want to speak up. This is where social anxiety is. Right? It comes from this fear of making a mistake. And I wanted to say something, and I didn't say it, and then I beat myself up like, come on, you fucking pussy, you coward. You can't say what you want to have on your mind. And like I said, such a cruel voice that stemmed from that fear. It came from, you could say, well, it was well intentioned. I could see it subconsciously wanted the best for me. But its method is insane. It's insanity. And I know a lot of my brothers and sisters out there have this voice inside of them. Right? If I don't listen to the fear, I'm going to turn into a puddle of nothingness. I'm like, well, question that voice. Question that voice. Do something about it. Really, if I'm not going to listen to this voice that belittles me, I'm going to turn into nothingness? Or is this one of its tools to keep you small, to keep you safe? Right? Self-attack is the ego's ultimate weapon. Remember what the Course teaches. I am not the victim of the world I see. I have invented the world I see. This is the purpose of the channel too. Is just, one step closer to self-love means also changing the way you look at things, your perception on things, how you look at this fear. If you let it define you, like I said, this little coward yellow belly, how are you going to face it? Right? If you look at perhaps I have a challenge to overcome. Or what is this fear letting me know? I just want to remind you guys, you are the author of your internal world, right? You can replace this voice that's torturing you with the gentle voice, the Holy Spirit, who only offers grace when you stumble, right? This is what I wanted when I asked me to shout, or I wanted to ask me to shout to dance. Just having some grace, have some space. That's when I look at the positive masculine role models. They don't call you a pussy. They don't call you a beta. And they give you grace. It's like, hey, no, like maybe next time, just if you want, next time, just say hey, how are you? This is also exposure therapy, right? There's all these different modalities of fear. Exposure therapy. Is any of them call yourself a beta cuck 30 times, then you'll get over the fear. Oh my gosh, right? And the way to overcome fear is shining light on the illusion. Right? Taking small constructive action and realize the fear was an illusion all along. Actually, I have a story I wanted to tell you because this happened relatively recently. I said I was invited by my friend in that group chat, my vegan group chat. One of the members just wanted to have a bowling party on Saturday. I hosted this improv jam on Thursday. With me and my temperament, I'm just going to be honest, guys. If I hang out with people, I usually need 3 days of rest. That's what I figured out about myself. I tried the other way of going against myself, trying to go out way more, and I just burnt myself out. That's not for me. Kudos for you if you like that. Going out every day, I don't. But anyway, so I said no. It's like, no, thank you. You guys have fun. I said I'm tapped out. And then I saw my friend Yannick, he sent me a voice note. And I was so scared of looking at that voice note. I was like, no, he's going to call me little bitch for not going out. And I did ignore it. I ignored it for the weekend because I didn't want to deal with it. But I said, okay, you can't just keep ignoring it. Monday morning rolls around. I check the voice note. He's like, oh, hey, Kahir. I just want to understand where you're coming from. Because like me, I'm an extrovert. I like talking to people anytime. But I'm just wondering how it looks like for you. That's it. Have you heard the hot stove analogy? Like, we avoid doing these things. The thing is a hot stove, but you touch it for 5 minutes. And you realize, oh, it's not so hot. Kind of the same thing. Right? But you can see how I made it. It's such a big deal in my head when it was literally nothing. And how many of us, we build something in our head and then we actually face it, it's like, oh, not such a big deal. I'm not actually a beta coward. Now, just like how the courses on mind training, we could also train our mind to face fear. And remember, you have to work with yourself, not against yourself. Right? Because every time we call ourselves, oh, fucking pussy beta, you're probably going against your nature in a bad way, right? You're trying to prove something, right? But we have this internal focus, be like, I got this. I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway, in the most loving way possible, right? Also, when we take action and face our fears, the stronger we become. Right, I'll give you guys an example. I was incredibly afraid of conflict. I think it also comes from childhood, right? Conflict was resolved by silent treatment or yelling in my house, right? So I avoided conflict like the plague. But as you can tell, we could probably guess that leads to a poor quality of life, right? You usually compromise if you're afraid of conflict. You don't stand up for yourself, right? So when I started doing animal rights activism, that's a lot of conflict. When I first joined Animal Voice, the group I'm in, I was like, how can I talk to people about veganism? Also, it's in Polish, right? My second language. How can I do this? Originally, exposure therapy, I was just with the group, just watched how people talked. Then I got this clipboard of common questions to help me. And then I just kind of learned the script. And that was more free-flowing and stuff. But, I did have the fear. What if people got mad? Or get mad, and they did. People, a lot of people are calm, of course. There's like those 1% people, but, now I guard my space. If someone chooses to get angry or is choosing to debate me, not have a civil conversation, I'm like, my energy, my space is way more important. I used to give up my time, my energy, my feelings to people that never change their mind. Because, oh my God, I gotta change their mind. I gotta do this. I'm like, no, my energy, my well-being is paramount, right? And now, after having 100+ conversations, It's normal. It's normal. It wasn't. That's the thing. It wasn't normal. So, but after a few dozen times, you get used to it. Right now took actually a huge break from doing activism. Might be a bit rusty, but it's not about that. I'm just saying that if you told me when I was 25 you'd be doing animal rights activism, I tell you, you're crazy. You're absolutely bonkers. There's no way this guy here that's afraid to talking to strangers in Polish, just in general, he'd be able to talk about animal rights. No way. I want to share a positive approach, how I helped somebody. He was a new activist in our group. He was in our group for a while. At least a few dozen cubes. Well, a few dozens, maybe 10. A few cubes, all right. And he didn't approach anybody. He would just stay with us, maybe talk to us, but he just didn't approach anyone. I went up to him like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm afraid, I'm afraid how people are going to react. The approach, I was like, well, have you tried Kaizen? He's like, what's Kaizen? Well, this is a Japanese philosophy of small improvements, but also the 5-minute rules. I'm like, just go up to a guy and just say it, and just tell him, hey, how are you? And just start the conversation. Don't think about activism. Just say hi. I saw a guy standing by the TV watching footage. I'm like, there you go, there's you go. Go try what I said, 5 minutes. And he had his first outreach. I was so proud of myself. But imagine if I was my old version of Kair, I'd be like, what are you, a pussy? Well, you can't talk to people? No one would like me if I talk like that, but we still have this version of our head in our head, right? Like, well, what are you, a little pussy bitch? You can't talk to people, bro, right? But he took the 5 minutes and he saw that fear was just all in his head, And I know easier said than done, but the more you practice, the better you get at it. I didn't shame him. I guided him. I acknowledged, like, hey, it's okay. I was there. I was the same person, right? When I did activism, no one really helped me that way. I had to figure it out myself, But I also looked at other people, how they were approaching and stuff. Okay. Right. Remember, darkness is a lack of light, as sin is a lack of love. It has no unique properties of its own. Right? So we use this fear as an opportunity to cast perfect love. Perfect love being like, hey, I acknowledge I feel fear. I'm as perfect as God created me. There's no way, shape, or form am I a coward. I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to do what I set out to do. Right? Remember, fear is just a shadow. The moment you step into it, taking action, the light shines. And you realize nothing was there to hurt you. Right? It was just your story that you told yourself. Almost done with this video, guys. We're almost to the halfway point. Where true masculinity is being a light bringer to yourself and to others. Right? It is having the courage to feel fear and to wrap it in compassion. Right? And gently walking yourself and your brothers forward. Because imagine if we grew up with this kind of mindset. And this kind of mindset, instead of like all this competition, if we just focus on collaboration and looking at as our brother as ourselves, like, I support you, bro. I support you. You got this. Encouragement, empowerment. Remember, perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is not perfect love. It's simple, but do we do it? Do we cast this perfect love? Or do we cast the pussy spell? The beta spell? Alright? Now I want you guys to think about any area of there's fear in you that you're not looking at it because you think you're weak. I would encourage you to take one small step, 5 minutes. Even if it's an introspection. Meditating, asking, what am I believing about myself that makes this true? And we untangle this belief. Alright, almost close to the end of the video. I just want to read passages of the course. Alright, let's close off this video from a course passage. Lesson 160. I am at home. Fear is a stranger here. Fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Identify with fear and you'll be a stranger to yourself. And thus you are unknown to you. What is yourself remains an alien to the part of you which thinks that is real, but different from yourself. Who could be sane in such a circumstance? Who but a madman could believe he is what he is not, and judge against himself? There is a stranger in our midst who comes for an idea so foreign to the truth he speaks a different language, looks upon a world truth does not know, and understands what truth regards as senseless. Stranger yet, he does not recognize to whom he comes, and yet maintains his home belongs to him, while he is alien now who is at home. And yet, how easy it would be to say, "This is my home. Here I belong, and will not leave because a madman says I must." What reason is there for not saying this? What could the reason be except that you had asked a stranger in to take your place and let you be a stranger to yourself? No one would let himself be disposed so needlessly unless he thought there were another home more suited to his tastes. Who is the stranger? Is it fear or you who are unsuited to the home which God provided for his Son? Is fear his own, created in his likeness? Is it fear that love completes, is completed by? There is no home can shelter love and fear. They cannot coexist. If you are real, then fear must be an illusion. If fear is real, then you do not exist at all. How simply then the question is resolved. Who fears has but denied himself and said, "I am the stranger here, and so I leave my home to one more like me than myself, and give him all I thought belonged to me." Now is he exiled of necessity, not knowing who he is, uncertain all things but this, that he is not himself, and that his home has been denied to him. What does he search for now? What can he find? A stranger to himself can find no home wherever he may look, for he has made return impossible. His way is lost. Expect a miracle to search him out and show him that he is no stranger now. The miracle will come, for in his home his self remains. It asked no stranger in, and took no alien thought to be itself, and it will call its own unto itself in recognition of what is its own. Who is the stranger? Is he not the one yourself calls not? You are unable now to recognize the stranger in your midst, for you have given him your rightful place. Yet is yourself as certain of its own as God is of his Son? He cannot be confused about creation. He is sure of what belongs to him. No stranger can be interposed between his knowledge and his Son's reality. He does not know of strangers. He is certain of his Son. God's certainty suffices. Whom he knows to be his Son belongs where he has set his Son forever. He has answered you who ask, "Who is the stranger?" Hear his voice assure you, quietly and sure, that you are not a stranger to your Father, nor is your Creator stranger made to you. Whom God has joined, remain forever one, at home in him, no stranger to himself. Today we offer thanks that Christ has come to search the world for what belongs to him. His vision sees no strangers, but beholds his own and joyously unites with them. They see him as a stranger, for they do not recognize themselves. Yet as they give him welcome, they remember, and he leads them gently home again where they belong. No one does Christ forget, nor he fails to give you to remember that your home may be complete and perfect as it is established. He has not forgotten you, but you will not remember him until you look on all he does. Who denies his brother is denying him, and thus refusing to accept the gift of sight, by which his self is clearly recognized, his home remembered, and salvation come. Remember, guys, fear is the stranger here. You are as perfect as God created you, even if you feel the fear. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. May the Holy Spirit light up your path wherever it takes you. Take care.